Now, this last explanation it's I think convoluted and very involved, to say the least. So I would like to suggest a real-world analogy. If you understand what's going on already, just skip over this video. The best way I can explain this is, imagine that you are a dad who is sending his daughter to a state-run university, and that university is in the United States. Now, in the U.S., once you're over 18, you're considered legally an adult. Most of the time, though, the dad is, of course, still going to be paying all the bills. Now, what I've found out is there's an interesting problem when you call up the state-run university to start asking questions about billing or housing or what have you. They say, oh, your son is a legally adult. I can't talk to you unless I get permission from your son. Of course, I point out, hey, I'm paying all the bills. They say, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. We need your son or daughter to call up and give us permission to talk to you. Well, imagine this scenario. The phone call is initiated, either me or my daughter. The daughter tells the operator about the dad, basically says, I am now passing on credentials to you, saying this is truly my father. Now, that's going to happen in the context of this ongoing phone call. The operator of this, the operator is the one who is who's going to make this all happen. The operator is going to initiate some kind of a lookup. The lookup is going to go out to the university database. It's going to look at the student roster, and she's just simply going to decide, okay, is this a student or is this not a student? If they find the daughter's name, they'll say, okay, we've got a good student here. She has identified that the other person on this call is the father. So now we are going to grant to that father the same privileges that we grant to the daughter. Again, the phone call is initiated. The daughter gets on the phone with this security mechanism. The operator says, okay, I'm the daughter. Operator checks that against the student roster, says, yes, you are the daughter. And then we confer at that point the privileges to the dad of the daughter. So from that point forward, the dad can talk to the state-run university and get all the same privileges and no more privileges than the daughter would have. Now, let's see if we can explain how that is analogous to what goes on in Pi with regard to security. When first initiate a connection, you have a connecting client. In this case, it's named Chuck. Chuck, through SharePoint, is going to pass his username and password, that's a Windows username and password, off to the Pi SDK via this user session. This is just a regular SharePoint user session. The Pi SDK picks up that username password, passes on the credentials to the Windows credentials, the name Chuck, over to the trust table. The trust table recognizes Chuck is a regular Windows user who does have an entry in the trust table, and it confers to that user the same privileges as Pi admin. It's basically saying, yes, okay, I recognize that you're a valid user, and we will give to that particular valid user the same privileges as Pi admin. So now at that point, all the subsequent calls are only going to be using the credentials of this thing called the application pool identity. It's the equivalent of the dad continuing with the conversation. See, the application pool, the security account associated with the application pool is like the dad. He's the one that carries on the conversation after having been cleared as the privileged user that is associated with that Windows user. So it's in the important takeaway here is on the very first request, we use the Windows login account to authenticate. During the subsequent requests for data, we're simply using the credentials of the application pool identity. That's going to be the Windows user that is associated with the security account for the application pool of SharePoint.